Happy New Year to everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Jinsa update on the war between Israel and Hamas. I'm Ari Chukral, Jinsa's Assistant Director of Foreign Policy. I'm honored to be joined by IDF retired Major General Yaakov Amidror, the Jinsa Distinguished Fellow and former Israeli National Security Advisor. As always, you can find the latest information and analysis that Jinsa has produced at jinsa.org. I welcome listeners to use the Q&A function in Zoom to ask any questions for General Amidror. General Amidror, I would like to start with a discussion of the Northern Front given recent events. A strike killed the senior Hamas leader, Salah al-Aruri, in Lebanon. Who was he, and what is the significance of his death to Israeli efforts to neutralize Hamas?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. The assassination of Aruri was important event because it's after many years during which we didn't kill anyone directly in Beirut, someone which is clear part of the Hamas terrorist mechanism was killed. Israel didn't take the responsibility. The guy was responsible for all the operation of Hamas outside Gaza. He moved between Beirut and Istanbul, and he was the leader of the pusher of all the terror operations of Hamas in the West Bank, in Lebanon, and in Syria. These are the three areas that had been under his responsibility. The guy who was responsible directly to Lebanon was killed with him. He had an office in Lebanon. He had an office in Turkey. A few months ago, the Turks expelled him from Turkey because they wanted to enhance the relations with Israel. But these were the two main offices of Hamas outside Gaza, one in Istanbul and one in Beirut. From time to time, of course, he went to Qatar to meet the leadership in Qatar, but the operational headquarters were in Turkey and in Lebanon. And the fact that he was annihilated is very important. First of all, it is clear signal to the leaders of Hamas. No one is immune. Second, it's very important for us to show Hezbollah that we are ready to take risks in Lebanon with all the attempt of Nasrallah to threat Israel and so on and so forth. I think it was very important to show, guy, we are ready to take risks. And I speak later on about the day after in Lebanon, and this is very important to understand. And it was important for itself to take out one of the important guys who are running terrorist actions against Israel all over the Middle East, but Gaza. So this is why he was annihilated, and as I said, Israel formally didn't take the responsibility.
You outlined his senior roles. Is he someone who it will be difficult for Hamas to replace?
As in many cases, there is the formal nomination, and then it's the character of the guy who was nominated. The good example is Soleimani. He has someone was nominated to take his place, but no one is reaching the level of abilities of Soleimani because of his leadership and character and trust in many places and connections that he built through the years. Imad Mourania was the same in Hezbollah. I'm not sure that Aruri is as important and as replaced by someone else, but I think it will take, if there is someone who is as good as Aruri, it will take time to learn. It's a very complicated job. You have to deal with Hezbollah, you have to deal with the Syrians, you have to deal with the Turks, you have to deal with people inside Lebanon, and you have to have all the connections in the West Bank, because that was the most important part of his job, to run the terrorist actions in in the West Bank. So I think that even if it's possible, it will take time. I don't know who will run the show after him, and only when we will know who is the guy, we can have a better judgment of the ability to replace him.
We'll talk about the possible escalation or Hezbollah's response in Lebanon in a moment. But
Yeah,
since he was in charge of, since he was in charge of the West Bank, do you expect some kind of escalation there?
No, on the contrary. The situation now in the West Bank, after the operations that the IDF did in the last 3 months in the West Bank, the situation of Hamas and Islamic Jihad is very bad. I mean, they have still people who are ready to sacrifice themselves, but we arrested more than almost 3,000 people, and we killed almost 300 people in all these operations. So I think that the both organizations, the Islamic Jihad and Hamas, are not in a good shape now in the West Bank, and now they're losing their leader, who was in remote control, responsible for all the operations in the West Bank. I think that the situation of if I have to judge it from outside, my assessment is the level of capacity of both organizations in the West Bank is very, very low now. They lost many assets on the ground in the 3 operations in the refugee camps of Jenin, Nablus, and Tulkarem. And as I said, we arrested many of them. I don't remember such numbers for. It's almost between 30 and 40 people killed or arrested every night. So it's not an easy situation for them, and now losing the leader, I don't think that their situation is good. And of course, they will try demonstrations and so on and so forth, but I don't see them doing something big. They will try, but their ability is much lower than 3 months ago.
What was your response to Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah's speech yesterday, and how do you expect Hezbollah to respond to Aruri's death?
My assessment was that, with all due respect to the Hamas and to Aruri, Hezbollah will not risk Hezbollah for the fact that that one Hamas leaders was killed in Beirut. I mean, they have their own interests, they have their own calculation. It is more connected to the needs of Iran than to defend or to retaliate for a Palestinian who died in Lebanon, and the pressure in Lebanon not to do something is a very strong one. And people in Lebanon are speaking about the fact that they don't want to be grabbed into a full war against Israel. They see what's happening in Gaza, and the nightmare is that the situation of Gaza will meet them in South Beirut or in Binjbel or in Nabatea. But it's a decision of Nasrallah and the Iranians, and we still wait for retaliation. It's not that we can do too many actions. The IDF is in very high readiness and alert anyhow. And in anti-air systems of Israel, from Iron Dome to Arrow 3, all of them are deployed for other needs. So Israel cannot make too many actions to prepare itself for retaliation. And now it's in the ball is in the court of Nasrallah. He has to make a decision. He said that he doesn't want a war, that he don't want to in a slippery slope process going into a war. So I don't know what will they do. I don't think that they know what will they do, but I think that they will not do something that might take both sides into a big war.
Nasrallah promised in August to respond to assassinations in Lebanon on Lebanese soil. Even if he doesn't want to escalate to a major war, do you believe he needs to take some kind of face-saving action? No, and what could that look like?
I heard many people quoting him, but that was before history. The whole situation was totally different. We are exchanging fire in north of Israel and south of Lebanon in the last 3 months. Every night, every day, we killed more than 150 Hezbollah members, and he's still very constrained in his actions. So all these declarations are before the situation was totally changed, and the situation today is not connected at all to the situation which was in Lebanon when he declared it. So I think it's not relevant.
On a similar note, with regards to change situation on the Israel-Lebanese border, Hezbollah has reportedly withdrawn its forces 2 to 3 kilometers away from the border. I believe this happened a few weeks ago, but it's come up in the news, certainly in the wake of Aruri's assassination. Is that withdrawal only in certain areas? And what does this indicate about Hezbollah's future planning? As well as, is this a tactical decision, or do you think a long-term decision?
No, it's not hinting anything. Israel, in our efforts in the north now, we try to thwart any attempt by them to launch anti-tank missiles or rockets into Israel, and we are killing every night people of Hezbollah, which are during operations. If we identify them before they launch the missiles or after they launch the missiles, and you know, it's in 80 days, in 90 days, we killed more than 150. It means that every night we are killing 2, every 24 hours we are killing 2 members of Hezbollah. It's not something that Hezbollah heard in the last, I don't know, 30 years. They had operations in Syria, but here it's every night they are paying the price. They are concentrating on buildings in the settlements and some strongholds of the IDF, but it is about the buildings. Their success to hit and to kill Israel is very minor. I mean, they failed in almost all their attempts. The beginning was, I think that I described it, that they brought into the border teams of Palestinians and they tried to bring them into the fence and then to let them to cross the fence. We killed all of them. No one succeeded to go more than few meters from the fence. We lost some officers and soldiers in this beginning of the operations, including the lieutenant colonel. But that was stopped after they lost in all their attempts. And from then, what they do, they launch from the other side of the border. They are launching anti-missile tanks and rockets and mortars from time to time. So where they are more concentrated in real estate, we are more concentrating in military positions, headquarters, and personnel. So this is a situation. Each one has his constraints. Each one knows the limitations that he should not cross, and that can continue for I don't know how many time in the future. They are losing people every day.
What does Israel need its northern border to look like, and how far back would Hezbollah need to be from the border for Israelis to feel secure enough to return to their homes?
Because our success to kill so many of them and to destroy part of their military infrastructure in the border, they move part of their forces to the north. It's not a political decision to move their forces from the border. It is a tactical decision to save the life of these people. And the minute that it will be quiet, they will come back. Here, about the day after in Lebanon, there are 3 main alternatives. One is that international pressure will succeed, and they will move their forces to the north. I don't know, 10 kilometers. The American guy responsible for this, Mr. Hochstein, is here in Israel now, and he will go to Lebanon. And the French are very much involved in these efforts. The only way to convince Hezbollah to move its forces is that if America will say loud and clear to the guys in Lebanon, if you don't move your forces to the north, America will back Israel, and we will tell the Israelis, go ahead on against Hezbollah. Because in Israel, there are many people that think that it should be done. And one of the questions that many Israelis ask themselves is the legitimacy by the United States of America, and if it will be clear to Israel and Lebanon that that legitimacy will be given by the Americans, that might convince Hezbollah to move its forces, because Nasrallah doesn't want to war. If he will not be convinced, Israel has two alternatives. One, to go to war. And the voices in Israel, it's not a secret, the voices in Israel to go to such a war are very important for voices. They're saying, anyhow, we are in a war. The IDF is there. We don't have to call the reserves. The reserves are there. The Air Force is ready. We have a lot of experience based on what we did in Gaza. So it's the best time to go to war against Lebanon. And to finish the question of Hezbollah for years, there are some limitations that we have to take into account. One of them is the United States of America support. I don't know if it is guaranteed or will be guaranteed, and if it will be wise to do it without such guarantee, such support. And other elements that we have to take into account does matter. If the answer will be yes, Israel will be in war within days. If the answer will be no, it's not a good time to begin a war in Lebanon, Israel will have to change the whole character of its defense in the north, to add more forces, to change the fence or the barrier, and to make it stronger and more complicated, to enhance the ability of the people in the north to defend themselves. It will be a long, and we will have to convince the people to go back, because they might claim that nothing was changed. So we have to show them that something important was changed on the ground, and one of the issues is more IDF forces in the north for a long time. But that cannot be forever. Israel will have to make a decision, if not now, within a few years, to preempt Hezbollah. This is my personal view.
Is Israel's thinking about the day after with regards to the north in particular, as you said, the potential to have more forces or more resources there,
of course,
connected to how it's thinking about the day after in Gaza?
There is a connection, because at the end it's the same IDF. We don't have two IDF, one for the south and one for the north, and that should be taken into account. But for defense, we have enough in both. If we want to go to another war in Lebanon, parallel to the mopping up of the area in Gaza, that means that we have to call the reserves again.
A U.S. drone strike killed a senior commander of an Iran-backed militia in Iraq today. Do you believe that the recent strikes that killed al-Aruri in Lebanon, IRGC Major General Saeed Razi Mousavi in Syria, and then today the senior commander of Iran-backed militia, indicate that the U.S. and Israel are stepping up their efforts to target senior leaders, or is this more just a confluence of events?
I don't know to say anything about the efforts of the Americans. Israel's decision to kill Aruri in Lebanon is for sure a different attitude towards the whole issue regarding Hamas, regarding leadership, regarding Beirut. No, no question that it is a different attitude. About America, I don't know.
Moving to Gaza, our last webinar about the war was just before Christmas. So could you provide an update on the situation over the last 2 weeks?
Yes, Christmas didn't change anything on the ground. When very few Israelis are celebrating Christmas, and there was not any change in the military operation because of Christmas. We are towards the end. We need, I don't know, 2 or 3 days to finish the occupation of the north part of Gaza, and then I think that the technical name for the next stage is mopping up in English, meaning to clean the whole area from all the remnants of Hamas, to go from hall to hall, from office to office. We have huge intelligence, new intelligence based on what we captured in headquarters of Hamas, and interrogations of Hamas terrorists, which we have in our hands in Israel. And based on this intelligence, we can the ability to put all the infrastructure and of Hamas on the ground and under the ground, and I want to emphasize, and under the ground, is much better than in 7th of October. It's a process of getting all the materials and to learn it and to put it on maps that it will be easy to identify and to find later on in Gaza and to destroy it. So this is a long process, which we are in the beginning of this process in the north part of Gaza. In the south part of Gaza, we are still in the more intensive part of occupying the area and digging to find the entrances to the main system of the underground tunnels. It's huge, huge. We are not surprised from the number of kilometers of underground tunnels. We are surprised by the quality of the tunnels. What they had underground, in some cases 2 or 3 floors, and so on and so forth. So in the south, we are, I can say, 30, 50% of the work was done, and we have to continue it. We are moving forces into the north slowly because we want to be better prepared in the north. We need less forces to clean Gaza than to conquer Gaza. And because we finished the stage of conquering it in the north, it's easier to take forces out and to move forces from the north part of Gaza to the south part of Gaza. It's a calculation that we are doing in Tel Aviv to use both the regular army and the reserve, and we want that more reserve forces will go back home. And we have a plan when they will be called again, if the situation will continue at the same level. And of course, if it will be a war with Lebanon, all of them will be called. It's a burden on the Israeli economy, no question, and we have to take it into consideration as well. But in Gaza, we finished first stage of the ground forces operation in the north. We are moving now to the second phase. In the south, it will take few more days or weeks.
What was surprising about the quality of the tunnels in Gaza that you mentioned?
Take the depths and the fact what they have under the ground, the sophisticated headquarters, 3 levels of tunnels, the connection between all the parts of the tunnels. We didn't know that all of them are connected. So we have some surprise, but we knew basically about the system and we prepared ourselves. We don't have a good solution how to destroy it in a fast way. It will take time. You have to bring a lot of TNT under the ground and then to ignite it. It's a process. It's a long process which will take time. And we want to do it after cleaning it from all the headquarters and getting all the papers and the media from the computers into our hands, because we want to be sure that at the end we will have all the information that will allow us to destroy the infrastructure in the next year, at least next year.
We have a question in. Could you describe IDF approaches to neutralizing, eliminating, and minimizing the effectiveness of the Hamas tunnel infrastructure?
Now we have much more understanding how should we do it. We try to find on along the line of the tunnel places that we can go into the tunnels, not in the entrances which had been built by Hamas, because those entrances are probably with traps. So we have to build kind of a new entrances and to surprise them in the way that we are getting in, but we are losing, of course, soldiers in our attempt to go into the tunnels. If it is the first time that someone is going down, it's a high risk. There is no any way to eliminate it. But slowly, you have better technique how to deal with the tunnels. But still, we don't have the golden solution, the one which will allow us to say, okay, in the next 3 weeks, we are destroying all the tunnels. No, it will take a long time to do it, because the old good way to bring explosions under the ground and then to detonate it. It's a long process.
Continuing with the discussion of tunnels, last week there was a report of the tunnel system in Lebanon, which was shown to be much more extensive than in Gaza. This is a question on Zoom. Do you think that report is factual? And if so, how will Israel destroy that system?
We don't say anything about the tunnels in Lebanon, what we know and what we don't know. We understand that it is something that we will have to deal with if it will be a war. And we are preparing ourselves, and with the lot of experience that we gained in Gaza, it probably will help us, in spite the fact that the land is totally different. It's very rocky in Lebanon, and it's very sandy in Gaza. So what can be learned and what cannot be learned, and it's a very interesting question that we are dealing with. We are building our expertise in Gaza and what can be learned and be copied into Lebanon. It's a good question, but no question that the one question is we can answer for sure. We will come much better prepared than before the war in Gaza, in which we met the huge system of underground tunnels.
As a reminder, please submit any questions you have through Zoom's Q&A function. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that the Philadelphia corridor must be in Israeli hands. If you could maybe explain to the audience what the corridor is and why would Israel potentially want to control this after the war?
Israel border with Gaza is in the north and in the east. In the west, it's the Mediterranean. In the south, it's Egypt, it's the Sinai Peninsula. The Philadelphia axis is the name in the code map of Gaza Strip. It's the road going from the sea to the southeast corner of the border of Gaza Strip, and this is the line in which the border between Gaza and the outside world is to the Sinai Peninsula, Egyptian sovereignty of Egypt. It's part of Egypt, the Sinai Peninsula. From what we understand, a lot was smuggled into the Gaza Strip through tunnels under the Egyptian border, in spite of the fact that the Egyptians made huge effort to neutralize this ability. And from the Rafah pass, which is the point in the border between the Gaza Strip and Egypt, that people are crossing, and all the goods are coming by trucks or whatever. So theoretically, Israel will be in much better position if we will be in a control of Philadelphia line, the border between Gaza and Egypt, in the Gaza side, not in the Egyptian side, of course, to neutralize the underground tunnels and to be in a better control of Rafah pass. The problem is that if Israel is controlling the Philadelphia line, meaning the border between Gaza and Egypt, Israel is controlling all the borders of Gaza, and in the legal meaning of that, or the legal consequence, is Israel the occupier responsible for all the problems, or all the needs of the 2 million Palestinians in Gaza Strip. We don't want it. So how to encircle how to square the circle and to build something that we are not responsible for the border between Gaza and Egypt, and at the same time we are controlling it and not letting things to be smuggled in. It's a question that I don't see the answer. I am not sure that anyone has an answer.
Could you provide insight into recent reports that Israel's already begun establishing a 1 kilometer buffer zone inside Gaza? Is this physical perimeter, and if so, how is it being enforced?
Yes, it's physical perimeter, which will be cleaned for building and trees and so on and so forth. I don't know how it will be built. Fences, of course, mines. One of the biggest mistakes that we did in the past, before 7th of October, that everyone from Gaza could reach the fence and touch it. We didn't like it, and we use fire to stop it from time to time, but many people from Gaza came every week to demonstrate along the fence. That should be stopped. And the only way to stop it is to build a perimeter, which will be with mines and other explosives, that everyone which will come in will be killed automatically. We will not have to make any decision, because if a decision should be taken, many civilians will come, and it will put us in a situation in which we will not be in a position to kill all of them. But if it will be a big minefield, with other tools that automatically react to any entrance to the perimeter, that might work, because we don't want anymore that people from Gaza can reach the fence without paying very high price. And people should make the decision if they are ready to sacrifice their life to reach the fence. So we are building now. We are preparing it by cleaning the area. Nothing was done yet other than cleaning the area. We are beginning to clean the area.
Is there any viable option for moving Gazans to another location, such as Egypt or another country? And that's a question we have in on Zoom. And on top of that, there's been recent reports, I believe, from Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir have put forward proposals about resettling Gazans. So are those widespread proposals?
Theoretically, if someone from Neptune will come to it, for Moon will come and will be asked what is the only solution that might help Gaza, it's immigration. It's less than 400 square kilometers with more than 2 million people. Even theoretically, and without any natural sources. I mean, they don't have not oil and nothing, not even what Singapore has, a very important crossroad in which you can build a big port. Gaza is not an important port at all. and so it's important for the people in Gaza, but that's all. So the only real solution for the bad situation of Gaza before the war, I'm speaking about the standard of living, the ability of people to find jobs and so on and so forth, is immigration. More than 2 million people living on less than 400 square kilometers. It's something that cannot, it's not viable in the Middle East. Maybe in the middle of Europe it might work, but not in the Middle East with all the weather issues and water and whatever. But Israel is not pushing anyone out. It's a decision that should be taken by the population of Gaza. There are some voices in Israel, like Ben-Gvir and others, but this is not the line of the government. And I think if that will be brought into the government table or the cabinet table, that they will not gain support around the table. It's ideas that you can find within some very extreme right-wing parties and leaders, but it's not the formal policy of Israel, and I don't see the government of Israel adopting it. So there is a big gap between theoretical solution, which is, from our point of view, the only one which might work for the long period, and the fact that Israel is not taking part in any attempt to push the Palestinians out. Of course, if someone comes and says, I want to immigrate and I need to go through Ashdod to Europe, he probably can do it, but Israel is not in the business of pushing the Palestinians out. Helping the Palestinians who want to immigrate, probably yes, but not now in the war, during the war. And we are not initiating such immigration.
2 bombs yesterday in Kerman, Iran, which ISIS has claimed credit for, killed at least 84 people at a commemoration ceremony on the 4th anniversary of former IRGC Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani's death. How has the Iranian regime responded to the explosion, and do you think there's a risk of escalation against the US or Israel, despite ISIS having taken responsibility for it?
I was asked yesterday by someone from the international media about it, and I said, I don't know, but from all my experience, I don't remember even one operation that Israel acted like that to kill people, innocent people who came to a graveyard for someone which was very, very, very bad. Probably those who come to commemorate him are not supporters of Israel. But it's not the way that Israel is acting to kill, I don't know, women, children. I don't know who was killed, to kill 100 people only to show that we can. It's not our way of handling operations, not in Iran and not anywhere else. So immediately I suspected that it is either ISIS or one of the local groups which want independence to get independence from Iran. So I'm not surprised that ISIS took responsibility for the operation. And I think the Iranians found at least one guy who commits suicide in the operation, so they know that it is not Israel. Can they use it for their propaganda? Probably yes. Will it be smart in this situation when the Americans are saying we know that it's not Israel? Israel didn't say that we didn't take any responsibility, of course, to something that we didn't make. And now the Iranians can be sure that it's not Israel because they have at least one body of one of the guys who committed suicide bombing. So my expectation that the Iranians, after declaring that it is Israel and America, understand that it is not, and they will not go to a war, not against Israel and not against America, without have any reason to do it.
With our remaining time, I'd like to turn to the Red Sea. The U.S. finally returned fire against Houthi boats in the Red Sea, sinking 3 of them, and then issued a statement alongside several partners that's been widely interpreted as a final warning to the Houthis to stop the attacks. Yet the Houthis have since continued attacking commercial vessels. How do you think the U.S. sinking of the Houthi boats affects deterrence? And what will it take to finally deter the Houthis and their Iranian backers?
There is the Houthis are doing two different actions against Israel. One, they are launching missiles, long-range missiles. Between Israel and Yemen, it is more than between Israel and Tehran. It's a huge distance. It's more than 2,000 kilometers. In miles, it's 1,300 miles probably. So, and because of the situation, there are three members under the umbrella of CENTCOM, which are cooperating, thwarting these missiles and cruise missiles and so on. It is, first of all, it's the American Navy and the United States of America with its radars and network around the Middle East, and satellites, which immediately identify the launching. It's Israel, which is the target, and we allocated a lot of efforts to identify the flights of the missiles and the cruise missiles, and we are using both radar ships and the aeroplanes. There is at least two occasions in which F-35 succeeded to intercept cruise missiles. So I think it's something which is very important. We use our Arrow 3 and Arrow 2 to intercept, and the Americans are intercepting most of them over the Red Sea, and the Saudis are contributing both radar information and thwarting missiles coming over Saudi Arabia. So in a way, it's an informal alliance which was built under the umbrella of CENTCOM to intercept the attempts of the Houthis to launch missiles and so on, cruise missiles and so on, drones, towards Israel. The other action that the Houthis took is to block the Bab el-Mandeb. It's international water important crossroad. It's everyone who is coming through the Suez Canal out or into the Suez Canal must go through this point. Egypt is suffering from this operation much more than Israel. We are getting from the east mainly cars and goods from some countries, mainly China, not only China, but mainly China. So the influence on the Israeli economy is very, very, very low. But for Egypt, it's devastating. Third of the foreign currency income of Egypt is the Suez Canal. Sudan cannot bring anything because port of Sudan is in the Red Sea, and Bab el-Mandeb was blocked. No one can reach Sudan port. The same is about Aqaba in Jordan, which is the only port of Jordan. So yes, Israel, it's a problem for Israel, but not a big one. And there are other countries which are much more suffering from this action of the Houthis. And I think it's more international problem than Israel problem, because it is hurting the whole chain of supply around the world. No one is coming just from the east, just for Israel. Israel is a port in the middle that from Israel they are going to Europe mainly. So now the Americans' decision to build a force which will defend the free pass of the Bab el-Mandeb is very important. But I think that what we can learn from the last few days in which the Americans' forces were there, but still the Houthis continue to launch missiles into
ships crossing the Bab el-Mandeb. I think that if the Americans will not be more offensive, the Houthis will not stop. So I don't want to give any advice to the Americans, to do what to do with your navy better than I know. But what I can say from knowing the situation in Yemen, that by being is not a way to convince the Houthis, only by action. And the old diplomacy of by being will not work on the Houthis. You have to act.
On a similar note, the U.S. announced that the Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group would return to the U.S. after an extended deployment to the Eastern Mediterranean. What impact do you believe having the presence of that carrier, as well as another carrier, the Eisenhower in the region, has had on deterrence? And are you concerned that the absence of the Ford could send a signal to Iran or Hezbollah?
Israel does not need the Ford for fighting Hezbollah or Hamas. And this is why the carrier in the Red Sea is more important than the carrier in the Mediterranean, because it helps to deal with the Houthis, and it is a deterrence against Iran, much more than the one in the Mediterranean. So the one in the Mediterranean was very important at the beginning of the war, to signal a strong signal to everyone: the Americans are here, and don't go to and don't enter the war. Now, after a few months, now we understand that the main aim of deterrence should be the Houthis and the Iranians, and for that, the location of the carrier in the south is much more important than the one in the Mediterranean.
You mentioned the below the table, so to speak, intel sharing relationship that is developed with regards to protecting against Houthi missile strikes. JINSA had released a report in March last year about integrated air and missile defenses throughout the region, the importance of them, the steps that have been taken, certainly below the table over time to build up regional air defenses. Do you think what's happened since the war started in terms of cooperation has the potential to become more formal going forward, if not now while there's an ongoing war, but maybe lessons learned now could become more formal in the future?
What I know for sure that it didn't happen because of the paper of JINSA. It's happened because of the situation on the ground, that Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the Americans are facing very determined Iranian effort to dictate the situation on the area, either by attacks of the Houthis or by launching their own capabilities near India. And of course, the Houthis are proxies of the Iranians as well. So the situation on the ground dictated to all three partners to cooperate, because in this situation, they are in much better position to defend themselves against the Iranians or the Houthis' attempt to do whatever they are doing in Bab el-Mandeb and against Israel. It is easier because of the formal umbrella of the CENTCOM. Much more easier for all the partners to cooperate. And the cooperation is there. Will it lead to a better cooperation in the future? Very much depends what will be the situation in the Middle East. If it will be a need in the Middle East, it might be a very good step at the beginning, and then to enhance it in the future. So it very much depends what will happen in the Middle East.
As we come up on the end of our time, I'll leave it for you for any final words that you have.
I think that Israel now has two main decisions to make. First is to understand how we are securing the interest, the needs of Israel in the Gaza Strip, free action and the perimeter, and how we are making for the population which evacuated itself from the area around Gaza to go back to their settlements, to rebuild what was burned and destroyed by the barbarian attack of Hamas, and to bring those which didn't lose their settlements and their houses back. And for that, we have to be sure that Hamas cannot be active anymore in the future. It cannot be achieved without it, and it will take time to clean the Gaza Strip, but at the end, we will be in a position that Hamas cannot attack Israel anymore. And the only members of Hamas which are surviving are those in the prisons of Israel. We will kill them all in Gaza, whoever will not surrender, and we will arrest them all in the West Bank, even if we have to double the numbers of Palestinians in our prisons. And so this is the question of the day after in Gaza and regarding Hamas. But I think that more challenging decision and more problematic in its consequences should be, okay, what the next stage in Lebanon? And here the answer is much less clear than in the south. In the south, it's clear. We should destroy them all. Just today, 90 battalion commanders from the reserve forces send a paper to the chief of staff, don't stop. Continue the war till the end of Hamas. 90 battalion commanders only from the reserve forces.
What kind of precedent is there for something like that?
I think that there is no any precedent for such number of lieutenant colonels in action. All of them are with responsibility to their battalions. It's a huge number. It's probably more than all the battalions which fought in Gaza in the war, during the war, in the last 3 months, more. So many of them probably from the north. From the north, meaning that they deployed to the north. They can fight in Gaza tomorrow morning. And I think it's very important to understand the sentiment in Israel and the need in Israel. It's both. It's going together. Everyone understands the need, and this is why it's a strong sentiment. In Lebanon, it's much more problematic, because that will be a devastating war for both sides, and we understand the situation, and to do it parallel to the continuation in Gaza, it's a good question. How it should be done. Remember, in 11th of October, the Prime Minister decided not to open a second front. There was suggestions by the military and others, and he said no. I think that was the most important decision that he took, and it was the right decision, but we will argue about it probably in the future. So there are two decisions that should be taken. Continuation of the war to eliminate totally Hamas from earth, and what should be done in the north, and probably part of it should be done parallel.
With that, thank you to the audience and General Amador for joining us. You can find all of Jinsa's work on our website, jinsa.org. Please check your email inboxes for our next webinar and future publications. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.
Thank you very much, and have a Shabbat Shalom and good weekend.
Shabbat Shalom.